Welcome in, whiskey freaks, to the Blind Tasting Podcast, your number one attitudinal bourbon destination. I'm John Stark, and I'll be bringing you candid and sometimes irreverent whiskey news, opinions, and reviews on the industry and the products they've been bringing us for hundreds of years. Today, I explain that Buffalo Trace has raised prices yet again. Should we revolt? Then I talk about Hell House American Whiskey, the official whiskey of rock and roll icons Lynyrd Skynyrd. Then I ask what bourbon would be the perfect gift for a friend. I'll give you 3 of the best affordable options out there, according to me. And last but not least, I review the second largest selling Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey, Evan Williams Bottled in Bond. Real quick, I need you to go to Apple or YouTube or Spotify. You know the places you go to get better podcasts. I need you to subscribe to the Blind Tasting Podcast. Trust me, it'll give you good luck and infinite blessings. If you just swing over there and do that, that would be so amazing. And please don't forget to follow on Facebook and Instagram. You don't want to miss any of my pithy comments and witty reviews. So here's the deal. Buffalo Trace has raised their prices yet again. You're thinking, what in the actual... Okay. Let's think about this rationally. Exactly what did they raise prices on? And the answer is not everything. And keep in mind, we're just talking about if you go to the Buffalo Trace Distillery gift shop to buy the allocated whiskey. You know, you wait in the snakes out in the parking lot, then you sprint past the slow folks and knock over a couple grandmas, and you grab whatever the benevolent whiskey gods at Buffalo Trace have deemed accessible to us peons on that particular day. And if you get there early enough, you can grab potentially Eagle Rare, Weller Special Reserve, E.H. Taylor Small Batch, or Blanton's Single Barrel. Now, I know they've got the Single Oak Project going on now, but that's a special thing. So, effective August 1st of this year, which is just a couple weeks ago, they've raised the price on E.H. Taylor Small Batch and Blanton's. So, E.H. Taylor went from $45 to $51.99. Now, if you do math, and I don't do math, but I think I got this one, it's about a 15% increase. And the Blantons went from $63 to $69.99, and that's approximately an 11% increase in price. The Weller Special Reserve stays at $30, and the Eagle Rare is at $40. Of course, like I said, this is all at the distillery gift shop. Now, I've had some strong words for Buffalo Trace recently, and I'm not going to go into all that in this episode. But in this case, I really think Buffalo Trace is justified in the price hikes. And can you even believe I just said that? I mean, these prices have been unchanged for close to 4 years now. Hey, have you looked around lately at the price of, damn near everything? Buffalo Trace has really used a lot of restraint, actually, by not raising the prices sooner or much, much higher. They've only raised the prices in reaction to the rising costs they face making this fantastic whiskey. Now, what I worry about, what really concerns me, is that this already allocated stuff will be way more expensive at your local liquor store. Listen, it works out for me because I can stop at the distillery every time I visit family in Kentucky. But if Buffalo Trace is raising prices at the distillery, you can be damn sure they're charging more to everyone else who distributes the whiskey across the country and even the world. Now, I may be wrong here, maybe, but I don't think so. And now, will they increase the prices on Weller Special Reserve and Eagle Rare? You can certainly expect it sooner than later, in my opinion. Even so, the modest increase in price, to me, it's really unavoidable, even for a multi-billion-dollar giant like Buffalo Trace. Are you pissed off about it? I can understand if you are, but it seems logical to me that what's happened here is that the price of literally everything has skyrocketed over the past few years or so. And so, well, here we are. Let me know what you think. Shoot me a message on Facebook or Instagram. I always appreciate hearing from the whiskey freaks. So I'm a huge fan of, all music. I love me some Conway Twitty. I listen to Anthrax, I like Lionel Richie, and even some Bad Company, to name just a few. But what about those long-haired country rockers, Lynyrd Skynyrd? Yeah, I like them too, and, well, apparently, now you can try your whiskey while you karaoke to Sweet Home Alabama. I'm talking about Hell House American Whiskey, the official whiskey of rock icons, Lynyrd Skynyrd, and it's produced by Bespoken Spirits out of Lexington, Kentucky. Now, this is both exciting and terrifying to me. Let me explain. We've already had a huge outpouring of celebrity whiskeys like Heaven's Door, Motorhead, Slipknot, Metallica. I think Brad Paisley has one, and God forbid Chris Stapleton's Traveler. It's a big list, and it's growing. And for the most part, they are unremarkable. And for me, that's a polite way of saying they're crap. I truly do like Motorhead and Heaven's Door. But do not touch the Slipknot. No bueno. Don't do it. Trust me. Now, Lynyrd Skynyrd is arguably one of the greatest rock bands of all time, or at least it's one of the most popular. They've sold over 28 million records, and that's just in the United States alone. And the band was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2006. Everybody knows Sweet Home Alabama, Freebird, all that good stuff. Now, my favorite song is Simple Man, for those of you keeping score at home. Like I said, Bespoken Spirits has been tapped to create a whiskey for the band. It's called Hell House American Whiskey. It's a cool name. And the story behind the name is cool too. They always got to have a shtick. Their name pays homage to the cabin down by the creek that the band would spend time at in the early days of Lynyrd Skynyrd. And I think it's funny that we're focusing on a cabin here. It makes me think of Carrie Nation's cabin at Garrett County Distilling. Evidently, you got to have a cabin to create whiskey these days, but I digress. In an interview with the New York Post, Johnny Van Zant, of the current iteration of Lynyrd Skynyrd, said the whiskey's name came from the nasty little shack in Florida, where the band called home. The house had no air conditioning, no heat, and no running water. So, Hell House it is. The whiskey is described by the good folks at Bespoken Spirits as having aromas of honeydew, sorbet, butterscotch, and allspice. On the palate, you get cotton candy and floral hints of rose and lavender, which that rose and lavender doesn't sound good to me. The finish is oak-driven and leaves a sweet and spicy, lingering allure. Okay, so it's only $49.99 for a 750. Comes in at 90 proof, which is about right for a celebrity whiskey. And it's not a terrible price. If you're a big Skynyrd fan, maybe you pick some up, I guess. But here's the kicker. Now, listen close, kids. This whiskey is extra aged in what they call a process of tailored wood finishing. The Bespoken people say, we can take something that's been in a barrel for just a year or two, and we can make it taste like it's been in a barrel for twice as long. With our technology, we've taken the science to the next level. Okay, so what they do is they add various wood staves to the young distillate, and that shapes the flavor profile after their short aging process in a barrel. They don't chill filter it either, from what I can tell, which I personally love not chill filtering. That's great. And that's pretty much what I found out about it, because their technology is super secret, and they don't disclose any real details about the process. Lots of $5 words and marketing fluff, actually. That's pretty much what you get on their website. Now, they do emphasize sustainability, and who doesn't like sustainability, right? Well, they claim their proprietary production system uses less wood, less energy, and less water than traditional whiskey making. And that's cool. They also say they don't lose the angel share, and this is the part that I like. They don't lose the angel share due to evaporation during the aging process. That's cool. That to me is the coolest part of this. I checked around, and in addition to Hell House for Lynyrd Skynyrd, Bespoken also produces a rye, a bourbon, and an American whiskey. So they seem like they're off to a pretty great start so far, and they have won a bunch of awards, if you give any actual credence to the World of Whiskey Awards. So that's good, right? But I gotta admit, my BS detector is really going off here to a certain degree. But I'm also a curious guy, so that's kind of pulling on me at the same time. Do I blow them off straight away? Who knows? Maybe their new technology does have a place in the whiskey world. And then again, maybe it's a flash in the pan that'll go the way of the Snuggie or the Thigh Master. It kind of feels like the Ozempic of whiskey to me, like they're trying to speed up a process that should kind of naturally be played out. I don't know. I'm no expert, nor am I a doctor. Only time will tell, I guess. Have any of you out there had this bespoken stuff yet? Specifically, the Hell House whiskey for Lynyrd Skynyrd? Should I review it here on the podcast? Reach out to me. Let me know. Is it good? Is it bad? What do you guys think? So shifting gears, I want to talk about lists. Yes, lists. That's exciting, right? I've seen a number of these lists over the years. You know the ones where the experts want to tell you what bourbon or whiskey to get a friend as a gift, or the top whiskeys to win friends and influence people, blah, blah, blah. I've got a couple issues here. Most of these lists are put together either by some AI chatbot or some propeller-headed journalist hiding in a dark cubicle. This doofus that usually sips on a White Claw or vodka and soda is going to tell you how to spend your hard-earned money on whiskey that they most likely have never even tried. This clown is who you should trust, right? So, yeah, no. So I started thinking to myself, self, you drink bourbon. You have a pretty decent palate. Also, you have friends. And you know how to make lists. Then why don't you come up with a list on your own? And I said, I will. And I did. You want some solid, realistic, actual no BS picks for your buddies that you can actually find and not go broke? Well, alrighty then. Let's get after it. Okay, so I've seen Basil Hayden small batch at the top of some of these lists. And at first glance, I want to just say, no, no, no. But then I remember back when I first got into the bourbon game, or the hobby, or fascination, whatever you call it. One of the first pours I really enjoyed was Basil Hayden. I was sitting at the Miller Lite restaurant in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I saw their bourbon list. Yeah, I know. I got bourbon at a beer bar. Well, at the top of the bourbon list was Basil Hayden. And for an $8 pour, and I didn't know any better at the time, it's a bit high for Basil, but I ordered it anyway, and I sipped happily along. It actually became my go-to bourbon, at least for a while after that. So maybe Basil's a good option for a buddy that's new to bourbon. Now, I like a higher proof point, and Basil's only an 80 proofer. But if you know your friend well and they're new to bourbon, then yeah, maybe the answer for them is Basil Hayden. And good news, you can find it at every gas station, Walmart, and dark alley. It's cheap to boot. It's about $35 here in St. Louis. And bonus, the bottle looks super fancy, so you'll get cool points at the very least. I say go ahead and grab your buddy some Basil Hayden. Also at the top of most of these lists I've seen, or at least near the top, is always Maker's Mark. Just the plain Jane, run-of-the-mill Makers. And while I'll drink it if nothing else is around. I think a better choice would be Heaven Hill Bottled in Bond. Little story here. So Heaven Hill kind of pissed me off a couple years ago when they took away the Heaven Hill 6-year-old bottle. You remember, it was that green bottle. I was picking that up in Kentucky for $14. No joke. $14 for a 750 milliliter bottle. So what did the good folks at Heaven Hill do? Well, the marketing geniuses, or master distiller, or whoever, who probably got a massive promotion, by the way, they figured out if they just added an extra year to it and bottled it in bond, they could charge an extra $25 for that bottle. Look, I'm not blaming them for the change of heart here. I get it, more money. And as usual, us big dummies just went out doo-dah, and we bought gobs of it. I did. I still have some here at the house. It really is fantastic, actually. And even at the $39 hairs I can get it at my favorite liquor store here in St. Louis, it's still a good deal. No friend or buddy is going to get pissed off if you surprise them with some Heaven Hill bottled in bond. Now, my favorite to give as a gift would be Four Roses Small Batch Select. You want to fight me on that? Look, the proof point is absolutely perfect at 104. It's aged 6 to 7 years, so you get seriously full flavors without a huge punch to the gut. Yeah, I know it's a bit higher price point at $60 hairs, but your buddy will be a friend for life if you hook him up with Small Batch Select. It really is worth that extra outlay of cash. Now, my honorable mention on a whiskey to get your buddy as a gift would be the go-to and old reliable Knob Creek 9-year bourbon whiskey. For me, it just brings me back time and time again. It's so consistently delicious, and the proof point at 100 is right on the money. You won't need to hire a private investigator to find it either. Literally, it's everywhere. I can pick it up here in town for $35 hairs all day, every day. So there you have it, my top recommendations to gift a friend. Let's summarize. Number 1, Four Roses Small Batch Select. Number 2, Heaven Hill Bottled in Bond. Number 3, Basil Hayden Small Batch. And honorable mention goes to Knob Creek 9-year. And as always, kids, it's free of charge. All right, whiskey freaks, let's get to the fun part now, my review. Today I'm cracking open a bottle of Evan Williams Bottled in Bond Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey. You've seen this one. It's virtually everywhere. It's sometimes referred to as the white label. It's at Walmart, the liquor store, the Quickie Mart. It's pretty much everywhere. But is this the world's second largest selling Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey? Is it worth picking up for $20 hairs? Well, we're about to find out. So the stats are as follows. The company is Heaven Hill. Duh. The distillery is Heaven Hill. Now let me share some fun facts about Heaven Hill with you. Heaven Hill Distillery has over 2 million barrels aging in more than 70 warehouses across Nelson and Jefferson counties in Kentucky. The distillery's main campus in Bardstown holds 500,000 barrels and includes 7 brick rickhouses, which are very cool. They can hold up to 75,000 barrels each. And the super fun fact is that Heaven Hill, which has the Bernheim operation in Louisville, now also has a new distillery, Heaven Hill Springs Distillery in Bardstown. It's expected to produce 150,000 barrels a year, and they've got the potential to increase that to 450,000 barrels in the future if they chose to. I gotta mention, if you get the chance to visit Heaven Hill in Bardstown, the Willett Distillery is literally a stone's throw away. So both distilleries have stepped up their games lately. They've made major improvements to the visitor experiences. So swing by one and then hit the other. They're literally right there. And the tastings at Willett are some of the best in my experience. They're down-to-earth folks, generous pours. I'll leave it at that. So the proof point on this Evan Williams Bottled in Bond is, of course, 100. Bottled in Bond requires certain criteria. Following the Bottled in Bond Act, the legal jargon is such that it's aged for 4 years, at least, under government supervision. The act guarantees that the bourbon is bottled at 100 proof, comes from one distillery during one distilling season, and of course it's labeled with the distillery's name and DSP number on the bottle. In the case of this one, it's 4 years old. I seem to think it might be closer to 5. That's my personal opinion. The bottle, I always mention the bottle shape and style. It's just my fascination with things. I don't know. This bottle is tall. It has that classic squarish design. It's got rounded shoulders. Think an ancient age bottle or benchmark as far as shape goes. It's very similar to those, but it does stand out from them if you see it on that bottom shelf in the liquor store. And that is typically where you'll find it. The primary label on it is black. It's got white and gold accents. It prominently displays the Evan Williams name in bold. Very easy to spot. And naturally, it's got the Bottled in Bond designation clearly shown on the front of the bottle in gold. The mash bill is 78 corn, 12 malted barley, and 10 rye. This is their mash bill at Heaven Hill they use for bourbons. And they have other mash bills for other expressions. This is the one they stick with for their non-wheated bourbons. the color. So the color on this one, the good folks at Heaven Hill, they call the color bright gold. I'm not going to argue with them. It's something like that. I think it might even be a little shade darker than that, but we'll go with bright gold. There's really no reason to argue at this point. And the color is probably irrelevant, especially if you're trusting me on this piece of the puzzle. But it does sometimes, give you an idea of the breadth of flavors you're about to get. In my opinion, the darker the hue of the whiskey, the deeper the flavors. I know, not always, but sometimes it is worth noting, and I will every single time. Today I'm tasting with my Limestone Branch Distillery Glencairn because I don't have a Heaven Hill. So we're going to use this one. Let me crack open the bottle, and when I crack it open, I mean twist off the cap. It's very fancy at Evan Williams with this plastic white cap. Get a little pour here, and we're going to nose it. Let me give it a second in the Glencairn. There's a little bit of ethanol, but not a lot. Maybe just a whiff. I'm getting 3 words, kids. Caramel. A bit of vanilla. Maybe a bit of dusty nuttiness. That sounds... And by that I mean pecan. Yeah, I would say pecan. And that's about it. It's not too complicated on the nose. Let me get in there. Let me get a little sip. So on the palate, I'm getting very sweet caramel. I mentioned that on the nose. A little bit of vanilla. There's some oak in here, but not a ton. And a smidgen of pepper. It all works very well together. So I'm going to get another sip. The reason I get another sip is because I never just take one sip and give up on a whiskey. Don't want to make a rash decision. I found, sometimes it can take 4 or 5 sips before it would grow on you or finally, just completely shut you down. So I would definitely not just do a one and done. I think, taking one sip and kind of running away from it could be foolish. You may be missing out on something. Give it a little time. Sometimes you got to give love a chance. Now, the finish, it's pleasant. I'm getting a pleasant warmth in my chest, and that makes sense. We're at 100 proof here, so it's a gentle hug. That sweetness lingers briefly, and I mean very briefly, along with that oaky and peppery note. And I'll be damned if I'm not getting some sweet tobacco, and that is really terrific. I love that, and I've never gotten that before with this. I swear the stuff has got to be closer to 5 years old with that tobacco note. Yeah, and that's it. It's gone. I wish the finish lasted longer. I've heard that before. So what's the verdict? I'll have the answer right after the money spot. Are you looking to update your bar or man cave with some great photographs or wall art? Head over to Etsy at famousdocs.etsy.com and pick up some fantastic prohibition, bourbon, whiskey, and gangster-related photographs and art. And if you purchase 4 or more items, you'll get 20% off your entire order for a limited time. That's famousdocs.etsy.com. famousdocs.etsy.com. So, on Blind Tasting Podcast, we have 3 verdict options. Are we going to keep it? Are we going to collect it? Or are we going to cull it? To keep it means to proudly display it in your liquor cabinet. This stuff is good for a pour any time, but there's really no need to stock up on it since it's always available. Collect it. Grab another bottle or 2 since you find it so darn delicious, or it just may not be easy to obtain. Or cull it. Use it to loosen rusty bolts or sanitize a dirty toilet. In the case of Evan Williams Bottled in Bond, I say collect it. Yes, and hear me out. Evan Williams Bottled in Bond is really the every man's or every woman's bourbon whiskey. It's a jack of all trades. Is it a symphony in your mouth? Well, no. But it brings everything you expect to the party and even a bit more. Remember, kids, you're only paying one solitary Andrew Jackson for what is arguably a sleeper that should go for around $30. I know I mentioned earlier in the episode that Heaven Hill Bottled in Bond was one of my faves, and it is. But you'll pay twice what this white label will run you, and this stuff really holds its own. I call it versatile. You can drink it neat, like I do. You can add a cube. You can even mix a drink with it, whatever you like. Listen, this stuff isn't the second most purchased bourbon whiskey by accident. Now, of course, Jim Beam White Label holds the title for number one, but this bad boy pulls off second place really well. And it's actually a much better bourbon by a long shot. I'd wager that if you blinded this one against a lot of higher priced bourbon, you'd be stunned at how well this one performs against any of them. At $20, you can pick one up and do your own experiment. Find out for yourself. You're not going to have to wait in line, get a wristband, camp out at the liquor store, buy into a lottery, or get a payday loan to get Evan Williams Bottled in Bond. And good news, you just walk in literally anywhere and grab all you want. It's too easy. Now, if you want to take your bourbon game to the next level, then this isn't the right bourbon for you. But if you like sweet, if you like cheap, if you like yourself, get you some Evan Williams Bottled in Bond. So pick up one, pick up two, even three of these before the prices soar even higher. Look, I remember just a couple years ago, I was getting this stuff for $14, and I'm kicking myself for not stocking up. But promise me, you'll keep this our little secret. If word gets out and the folks at Heaven Hill get wind of this, that price is guaranteed to jump. Last but not least, I got to give a shout out to the farmers, distillery production guys and gals, warehouse workers, bottlers, and truck drivers. They make it happen. So cheers to all of them. Well, that's all I got today, Whiskey Freaks. Thanks for listening to the Blind Tasting Podcast, your number one attitudinal bourbon destination.